into the Wednesday edition, the Hump Day edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid Tennessee Bone and Joint. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. Chris Yao still down on the coast hanging out. So we're going to get you through the middle of the week here for the next hour and a half, catch you up on sports from preps to pros, literally, because we got some prep stuff to tell you about. We got some pro stuff to tell you about, and probably something in between. Wade, how's your Wednesday?
Wednesday is great, Mo. Good to be with you. And like you said, we go from preps to pros, a little bit in between even. It's going to be a great show today. I'm fired up, brother.
Absolutely. We have coming up here in about 20 minutes or so, Heather Williams, our NASCAR expert, talk a little bit about the past weekend, the upcoming weekend, and a couple of things in between here that we need to touch on. We'll be talking a little Braves because that's what we do. Second hour, we have Chris Lee of Southeastern 14 talking a little Southeastern Conference developments, I guess. A little baseball, a little basketball. He's well versed in all of that, and look forward to getting his thoughts on a few things here as we, tie up some baseball and look ahead into the 23-24 school year for the SEC. And of course, it's Wednesday, so it's Wild and Wacky Wednesday, and it may not be as wacky as it is when Yao is here, but we'll try to give you some of the wildest and wackiest news that we've been able to come up with here over the last few days. So stick around for that in the last segment of the day. Few things that we want to get to in the first segment, but before we do any of that, we need to give you yesterday's scores, some of today's scores, and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
In Major League Baseball action from Tuesday night, the Marlins all over the Red Sox in Boston, 10-1 the final there. The Mets with a 7-2 win over the Brewers. Cardinals defeated Wade's Astros 4-2. It was the Phillies 5, the Cubs 1. The Nats with a 7-4 win out on the West Coast against the Mariners. And again, in a game we'll be talking about a little bit more later in the show, the Braves with an early barrage down the Twins at Truist Field, 6-2.
Ball was flying out of the yards last night.
It was.
In Truist. WNBA scores last night. The Liberty continued their strong season with an 89-81 win over the Sun. It was the Lynx 104, Storm 93, and the Wings in a low-scoring affair knocked off the Mercury 77-62. A couple of other news and notes. This is a schedule for you. The Geico High School Baseball National Championship, Florida 0, Tennessee 0. That game is in the 5th at Dallas Baptist. Tennessee versus Illinois still to come on ESPN Plus at 4 o'clock. So you can take your pick, Mo, on what level of baseball you want to watch on this Wednesday during the day at time hours.
Absolutely. And this Florida-Tennessee game is looking like a good one again. Scoreless into the 5th here, and 8 teams from across the country participating in this tournament. We had a little something on it on Main Street Murray earlier this month because Columbia Central's Connor Bowden is among the players taking part in that. Some other locals as well. I think it's a handful of kids from Clarksville playing on this team. So if you want to go to Main Street Murray or to Main Street Preps and check out the coverage of Team Tennessee in this event, and again, it's scoreless in the 5th here between Florida and Tennessee will next play following this on ESPN Plus against Illinois. Major League Baseball action today already in the books. The Braves swept the series at home against Minnesota with a 3-0 win here. That one just went final about 10-15 minutes ago. Later today, you've got the Nats at the Mariners. That's a 3:10 start. At 6:10, the Marlins are at the Red Sox. Also at 6:10, Milwaukee continues its series at Citi Field against the Mets. At 6:45, it's the Astros and the Cardinals. And at 7:05, the Phillies are at Wrigley Field against the Cubs. In minor league baseball, the Sounds did not play yesterday because they got 2 days off in a row, and they will wrap up their 6-game series out at Memphis on Monday. But they start that series today at AutoZone Field against the Redbirds. That's a 7:05 start. And in WNBA action today, they also had a day game. It's the Chicago Sky. Yeah, the Chicago Sky knocked off the LA Sparks 80-63. That was the final there. At 6 o'clock on NBA TV, you've got the Atlanta Dream at the Washington Mystics. And that is your rundown. Top story today. We talked to Willie Donick earlier in the week about this. The NHL draft begins tonight. You'll have round 1 tonight, and then rounds 2 through 7 are tomorrow. And it all takes place right here in the Music City, Nashville. Who has the first pick?
Blackhawks, right?
The Chicago Blackhawks do have the first pick, and I believe it will be a shock to everybody in the sport if they don't exercise it on Connor Bedard. So look forward to that, and then maybe the suspense begins after that. The Predators currently have the number 15 pick. There's still talk about them possibly trading up into the top 10 or higher. So that'll be something for local hockey fans to keep an eye on. But yeah, that begins, I think, at 6 o'clock. Trying to call it up now, having no luck. But yeah, you can see that on ESPN. You can see it on the NHL Network, and as Willie was telling us, 102.5 will have wall-to-wall coverage of the draft from Bridgestone Arena tonight. So be sure and check that out, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it tomorrow as well. In conjunction, I guess, with the NHL draft that is taking place here in town tonight and tomorrow, Tennessee State University announced earlier today it will become the first HBCU, historically black college and university, to field a collegiate ice hockey team. According to the release that they put out, TSU hockey will commence its inaugural season in 2024, signaling a new era for the university. The team will begin as a club-level program, but aspires to achieve NCAA Division I status for both men's and women's sides in the near future. While no specific timeline exists for achieving varsity NCAA status, TSU is committed to building a solid foundation for long-term success. So, hockey. I wouldn't say out on Jefferson Street because I don't believe it will be played actually on campus. I think they're more likely to play at the Ford Ice Center over in Bellevue. But hockey, TSU, intriguing.
To say the least. And I got a note on my phone a couple hours ago announcing that, and the fact that I got an ESPN notification letting me know that TSU was going to launch ice hockey, the first ever HBCU program to do so. That alone, to me, kind of speaks to the significance. I'm with you. I don't think we'll be seeing any games at the Gentry Center anytime soon. It's already a little hot and humid in there, and so even if you were able to cool things down, you don't want people sliding around the court. But I think this is a pretty cool move, and in kind of dovetailing just a little bit with what we saw with Fisk last year with gymnastics, you're seeing some HBCU programs. It seems like the HBCU scene as a whole is kind of having a little bit of a renaissance in terms of revitalizing some athletic programs and maybe trying to take their schools and universities to new heights. And I'm kind of excited. I was a little bummed when I saw that, they're not going to obviously jump right into a Division I type or even a Division II type endeavor. So we're looking probably at 3, 4, maybe even 5 or 6 years down the road. But if nothing else, it's a cool challenge, and I'm excited to see what happens.
I'm interested to see what happens. I think that there is a faction, particularly of, TSU alumni who are concerned that ice hockey is a direction that the university decided to go in rather than specifically reviving baseball, which they got rid of in the mid early to mid 1990s. I think 1993 specifically was their last season, and I think there is certainly a faction that would like to see baseball back on campus. But President Glenda Glover, bringing ice hockey to Tennessee State University as a part of our continued commitment to provide our students with new opportunities and to broaden new interests in areas where they have traditionally had limited or no access. We appreciate our ongoing partnership with the Nashville Predators, which has played a pivotal role in our decision to pursue this historic undertaking of starting an ice hockey program at TSU and the first for an HBCU. Tennessee State and the Predators have worked on some things together, and apparently that laid the foundation for a partnership with the Preds, the National Hockey League, and College Hockey Incorporated. So that's how this came about. The American Collegiate Hockey Association, which is the national organization for club hockey programs, has seen its former members transition to D1. That was the case when Arizona State went from a club team to eventually fielding a men's program. They won 2 national titles out at Tempe before that program went D1 in 2015-16. So they are in the process now, Tennessee State, of hiring a director of operations who will handle recruiting, fundraising, community partnerships, and everything that it'll take to get that program on the ice for the 2024 season. So be something to look forward to and to keep an eye on for sure. It's a big deal. Wade, is Wade frozen, Justin? Or am I frozen?
It looks like he might be. Yes. Or he's staring really long.
Yeah, he's not blinking. So let's see. Also wanted to touch on here during this opening segment as we effort to get Wade back. Former Arkansas and former NFL quarterback Ryan Mallett passed away yesterday in a boating accident, a water accident down in Florida. He had been serving as head football coach at Whitehall High School in Arkansas. Was named head coach in February of 22, and again had a some sort of a water related accident. It's a little unclear exactly what took place with that, but passed away yesterday. It was announced pretty soon after our show yesterday and started to trickle out and eventually became released officially, I guess, from a number of sources. The Athletic, among others, are reporting it. So Mallett played at Arkansas back in the late 2000s. He was Gatorade National Player of the Year in Texas in 2006 and played collegiately at Arkansas, went on to an NFL career with the Patriots, Texans, and Ravens before entering high school coaching in Arkansas. And again, worked at Whitehall High School over in Arkansas, coached that team this past fall, and was heading into his second season this year. So obviously our condolences go out to the Arkansas Razorback family and the Arkansas high school community over there on his loss. That's a big one. So Wade is in the process of trying to rejoin us here. Justin, how's life other than Wade not being with us?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. I'm pretty stoked about the TSU adopting hockey. I played ice hockey for a little bit, and it never was available to me in the Tennessee high school that I went to. So,
well, do you have any eligibility left at the collegiate level, Justin? Because they're going to be looking for some players.
Well, as we've said before, everybody's just undrafted free agents. So I could go to some sort of combine for hockey. I don't know if they have that, but
there you go. Well, yeah. I mean, you may have. I don't know what the academic eligibility requirements are or anything like that, but hey,
hopefully they're very low.
maybe we can see Justin in a TSU hockey sweater here before long. So
that would be a cool color scheme. I like that.
It and I'm sure that'll be, a nice get for folks that are into, sports related apparel and that kind of thing. So keep an eye out for that stuff. I think that'd be a great fundraiser right there. TSU hockey sweaters.
Definitely. Have they said who's going to be possibly the coach, or?
No, they've not gotten that far along yet. I don't know how far down the road they are in terms of that, but they are currently hiring a director of club hockey operations. So that's kind of where they're sitting right now, trying to get that firmed up so that they can get started with, again, recruiting and fundraising. Those are the two biggest issues, concerns that they've got at this moment, I would think, is trying to come up with some money to back this thing and come up with some players. So
Nice.
Let's go ahead and take a break right now and see if we can get Wade back and see if we can get Heather Williams in to talk a little NASCAR. So we're going to go to a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid Tennessee Bone and Joint, and hopefully we can come back all in one piece when we do. So stay with us.
Mid Tennessee Bone and Joint treats your orthopedic injuries and existing conditions. Our trained physicians will get you back in the game faster. Contact us at 931-381-2663 or www.mtbj.net.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Welcome back to Today's Better Health. I'm Colleen Barton, and I'm here with Dr. Gil Kentoff and Dr. Wendy Toohey, and we're talking about the latest treatments in back and neck pain.
Many people, Colleen, come to see us with neck and back pain, and they develop tingling and numbness down the arm or lower back pain that develops into sciatica shooting down their leg. And for these patients, we have an advanced treatment technology, non-surgical decompression therapy that we really introduced to this area. It separates the vertebrae and creates a suction to allow fluids and nutrients back in to heal the disc naturally, relieving pressure on the nerve and on the joint. It's an amazing treatment.
We've been helping patients like this for the last 30 years, helping them get back to work, get back to their family, get back to the life they want to live.
I mean, it really is amazing. Technology helping us to live pain-free and better lives.
Right.
And I bet you have a special offer.
The first 25 callers will receive an examination, x-rays, review of our findings, and their first treatment, all for $39.
Call 615-551-3897 today to receive this special offer.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Tennessee. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the TSSAA.
You can't see the sights without the sounds. From the crack of the bat to the roar of the crowd and everything in between, discover what Hit City has to offer. Spend your nights cheering on the Nashville Sounds at First Horizon Park with giveaways, fireworks shows, theme weekends, and more. Single game tickets are on sale now. Visit NashvilleSounds.com to claim your seat today.
Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint has been the official sports medicine provider for Murray County Schools for more than 40 years. We specialize in orthopedic service, and our Ortho Quick Walk-In Clinic lets you bypass the ER. Visit us online at www.mtbj.net. Welcome back to Wednesday's edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint. I'm Maurice Patton, joined by IT Tech Wade Neely, who managed to get back into the show after some technical difficulties there. Wade, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. The beautiful thing about the internet is you can do anything just about anywhere in the world. The horrible thing about the internet, when it goes, you're done.
It goes.
But we're back, baby. We're back.
Well, hey, when in doubt, just turn it off and turn it back on, though, right?
Absolutely. Hey, and I wanted to say, not sure if we got to put a bow on the TSU hockey story, but I will definitely be purchasing a jersey if and when those go on sale. A sweater, if you will.
Sweater. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I will be decked out in a sweater because those, at least on the mock-up, even look pretty sweet. And I guarantee you they'll look even better when they actually model them.
Absolutely. Going to talk a little NASCAR. And no one better to talk it with than our NASCAR expert, Heather Williams of WCYB TV up in Bristol. Heather, good Wednesday.
Vroom, vroom, let's go.
Vroom, vroom.
Big weekend in Nashville, big weekend coming up in Chicago.
Yeah. About Nashville. Well, I mean, it seemed kind of poetic, maybe, that Ross Chastain gets Trackhouse into victory lane here in Nashville with a win there.
It was a good place for that to happen, and I think that it was probably maybe one of the only places it was going to happen because it's friendly territory. He has been in such enemy territory, as it were. I mean, his name became a verb a little bit. I got Chastained. So for him to be at Trackhouse's home racetrack, or with a lot of Trackhouse people, with a lot of sponsors, with a lot of a support system around him, he was able to just, I think, relax, be Ross, do his thing. The car was just the dominant car all weekend. And so it was good. I mean, it's good to see Ross back. The sport is better when Ross is back.
And I'm sorry, no issues. No incidents.
Well, when you're up front, nobody can catch. Yeah, well, when you're up front, nobody can catch you. There won't be any incidents. I mean, you have to pass very many cars, so there's really not a lot of people for him to tangle up with. That's a testament to Trackhouse, man. Both their cars were fast. I know the 99 car's struggling a little bit right now, but man, I mean, Ross has been consistent all year, and when it's all together, that's what you get. They're a strong contender for the championship when they show up to the racetrack like that.
And you mentioned the 99 car, Daniel Suarez finishing 12th. I mean, I wouldn't think Trackhouse would be disappointed in two top 12 finishes.
No, especially the way the 99 has been. I mean, the 99, they've not had a great year. They've struggled, as I mentioned. So for them to be in the top 15, that's a strong showing at your home track for sure. And I think the break, the off week was good for Trackhouse. They were able to evaluate some things. Ross did some testing here in Bristol. And I think it was just a good chance for them to kind of reset, figure out what's kind of gone right in the first half of the season, what's gone wrong. And I mean, if they show up to the track like that every week, they're everything. They're right there.
First career pole for Chastain, first win of the season for Chastain. Nice way to kind of get the second half of the season started, I would think.
Yeah, and first organizational pole for Trackhouse as well. I mean, it was a big weekend, and it's what you want coming out of a break. It's so, that team's been so consistent all year that sometimes when you're running that well, and they hadn't won, but they were right there most weekends. A break is not a good thing, but I think just in the case of the one car, well, really both cars, the break was good because, like I said, reset your head. It was a chance for Ross to get all of that stuff that was swirling around in his head and all the people saying everything about him, just to get that all out of his head and show up and just race. And when they just race, they're very dangerous.
Chastain followed by Truex, Hamlin, Elliott, and Larson in the top 5. Besides his performance, what were your thoughts as far as the Ally 400 Sunday night?
Well, it's the same thing it's been every year, which is that Toyota show up, they're strong, they look like they're going to be the ones to beat, and they can't quite close the deal. I mean, you look at the number of Toyotas that ran up front all day and finished second and third, and really, Bubba was probably the strongest of the Toyotas, but was terrible in traffic. So when he had a bad pit stop, got stuck in traffic, or the pit cycle worked out where he wasn't up front, he had a hard time working his way back up there. But Tyler Reddick had a little issue in the pits. Otherwise, he probably would have been up strong. And then Ty Gibbs ran really well. So, and Christopher Bell, I think, had a top 10 as well. So the Toyotas were strong as expected. They always are at that track. So, I mean, it was pretty much everything that you expected to see in Nashville. Great crowd. Oh my gosh, great crowd, sold out crowd. Nashville loves its NASCAR, and it's good to see. Maybe we can get the second track on the schedule here soon.
Working on that. As you mentioned, on to Chicago. Unfortunately, on to Chicago without Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, gosh, how tragic that whole situation was. I'm trying to equate it to, I mean, I guess just as in terms of the loss, although the situation is completely different, I would say the last time that somebody affiliated but not directly on the race team, died tragically in the middle of the season like that was maybe the Hendrick plane crash in the mid-2000s, where the team officials and Rick Hendrick's son and everything were going to the track to Martinsville, and the plane crashed. Gosh, I just can't even imagine like the pain and everything going on in the Johnson family. I've met Shondi, his wife, several times. She's an amazing person, nice human being. Jimmy's obviously almost too nice. Back in the day, people thought he was kind of vanilla because he was so nice. So, nothing but prayers and love going out to them, because I can't even imagine dealing with that right now.
Absolutely. To bring you up to speed, Jimmy Johnson's father-in-law and mother-in-law, Jack and Terry Janway, and his nephew Dalton Janway were found shot and dead in a suspected murder-suicide in Muskogee, Oklahoma on Monday. And so obviously Jimmy's not going to run this weekend in Chicago, and don't want to trivialize what took place that resulted in him not running. That's as tragic a event as you could think of, I would think. And it's
unimaginable. And like I said, just really one of the nicest families in the garage area. Just really, I mean, not that it would be any less tragic if it was the most awful people in the garage area, but especially just knowing that family and just knowing how loving and how great a mother Shandy is and all those things. It's awful. And my prayers go out to them.
Absolutely. Wade, you made such an effort to get back in here and jump in. And you're on mute.
It's been that kind of day. Trust me, guys. So Heather, I guess my question is, obviously coming into a street race now, seems like things are going to kind of shift in terms of maybe who has an advantage, who's at a disadvantage. And I guess I'm curious, what are your thoughts? What are your immediate takeaways? Who stands to maybe gain by running this type of race as to opposed to the one we saw last Sunday?
Yeah, it's going to be a whole different cast of characters this week for sure. I think the two guys, when you think right off the bat, the two guys that probably have at least a little bit of an advantage are going to be AJ Allmendinger and Michael McDowell, just because they've both run street courses before, because those two have run different disciplines. AJ ran some IndyCar. There's actually kart, I think, when he ran it, and some rally car type stuff. So he's run on the streets before, and the same thing with Michael McDowell. So I would think, just from a technical standpoint and how to attack those kind of racetracks, I think those two guys will have a pretty marked advantage. Then you look at the guys that have run different disciplines of cars and road courses. So maybe like an Austin Cindric would also be a guy that has a little bit of an advantage this week. But nobody will have will turn one lap on that racetrack until the Xfinity cars go out for practice at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Because you can't run any practice, you can't do any testing because you have to shut down all of Chicago. So, guys have been like desperate for sim time. I mean, drivers that I talked to that would never get up before 10 o'clock or up at 8 o'clock or 6 o'clock in a sim because that's the only time they can get simulator time. They're all running it on iRacing, either on their own rigs or if they don't have them, borrowing rigs, buying rigs to just try to get a feel of what the track's going to be like. But it's going to be a challenge like no other. There's multiple types of surface. Usually go to a track, it might be concrete track or an asphalt track, or maybe the pit road's concrete and the track's asphalt like at Martinsville. This is asphalt with patches and tar and all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's a street. So it's just going to have a completely different feeling than any race that they've ever run. I think I saw that there was something like 6 or 7 90-degree turns on this track. So, I mean, we don't turn a full 90 degrees very often in racing. So it's going to be, practice may be the most entertaining point of the weekend because guys are not going to know what to do. So you might see some people run around that track like Ricky Bobby going, what's that? Because people are kind of feel it out. You might see some people charging into a corner and going too fast and hitting a water barrier on the side. So it's going to be, the great unknown is what makes this so fascinating because nobody really knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So when you say that, Heather, might we see some folks running their second cars in the race?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt, that's a possibility. I mean, I think that the Cup guys will probably be a little bit more conservative in their approach to practice, but in the Xfinity Series, I would say there's a good chance there'll be a lot of backups in that car in that race. They're a little bit more run with a little more abandon, I think.
And also, I guess I was curious, having watched a little Formula One, it kind of strikes me like that Monaco race where everything is tight. And you're right, the qualifying and the practice rounds are more entertaining oftentimes than the actual race when things finally get rolling.
Yeah, I'll tell you, when I was up there in Chicago, I guess it's been about a month ago when they had the media day, and I got to drive in traffic on the course. I was actually surprised how wide parts of the track are. You're going to be able to get 3 cars at some point to the track across there. So it's not going to be as tight as you think it is, especially on the long straightaways. Now, where the issues are going to come and where I think you'll see a lot of the action is in those 90-degree turns and in those braking zones, because that's where people are going to try to pass, because somebody's going to get braver than the other person and not slow down as soon and try to brake there or try to pass there where everybody else is braking. So that's where things could get hairy. But I don't think it'll be quite like Formula One. Because the drivers in NASCAR are not afraid to touch each other and move each other out of the way, but also because I think the streets are a little wider than Monaco. I think you're going to be able to see 2 or 3 cars pretty consistently in certain parts of the track and the ability for them to race side by side.
Heather Williams of WCYB TV in Bristol joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint, as she does virtually every Wednesday, talking a little NASCAR. Heather, what are your thoughts? I mean, who do you feel like, you mentioned Allmendinger, I guess. Is that your best bet for Chicago?
No, because he's definitely got an advantage, but I just take, and it's a completely different discipline, but I just take Bristol Dirt, for instance, right? When we did Bristol Dirt, everybody was like, well, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Austin Dillon, those guys grew up running dirt races. They're going to be the odds-on favorite to win the first dirt race at Bristol. And then Joey Logano, who's never run dirt, won it. Because while you can have all the experience in the world on that kind of course, these cars are completely different on these courses. So I think Allmendinger is a better bet to do well at this track than, say, Kyle Larson and Bristol Dirt, just because Allmendinger is such an accomplished road racer, and he's won Cup Series races on the road course. He won Indy last year or the year before as a part-time driver. I think it was the year before. But he was a part-time driver. He wasn't even a full-time Cup Series driver at the time. So I think he's a good pick. But I think that the same cast of characters that always seem to be the most adaptable will be the guys that you see up front. So a Logano, a Denny Hamlin, a Martin Truex Jr., have just a Kyle Busch, have just as much chance of running up front and competing for the win as Allmendinger does. Although I do think Allmendinger will be very good this weekend.
I'm intrigued, Heather, when you mentioned, the surface and the variations. So they didn't resurface the course?
They patched some holes in the street and those kinds of things, but they didn't completely repave it. No, not at all. And that when I talk to the drivers, that's really kind of what they think will be the biggest challenge to this whole thing is you're running your line, and you know where all the bumps and all the things are. And then maybe when you're trying to pass or somebody's trying to pass you, get knocked off your line. And all of a sudden you hit a bump you didn't know was there and it upsets your car. So that's going to be really a challenge to this weekend for the drivers is adapting to the 2 or 3 different kinds of pavement that they'll be racing on this weekend.
So, how do you set your car up then?
You just got to do the best you can for balance. It's completely different discipline, but it's kind of the same concept of, say, when they go to Pocono. Pocono has 3 completely different turns, and you can never be happy in all 3 turns. You kind of just have to compromise. You have to be really happy in turns 1 and 2 and not miserable in turn 3. So they're just going to have to set it up where they're really happy in, most, 6 of the 12 turns and not miserable everywhere else. Because there's no perfect setup in a track like that. Bristol, Nashville, even when they start racing at the fairgrounds, there'll be somebody that can hit a perfect setup. Ross hit a perfect setup at Nashville this weekend. But on the track like this, you just have to be as not miserable for most of the time as possible, and then just get your elbows up on the wheel and drive.
Heather, and it's well documented how little I know about racing. So do the Cup drivers, do they watch the Xfinity race? Do they watch the truck race? Do they take anything from those events?
Yeah, they'll be watching the Xfinity race for sure. And they were not allowed to drive in the Xfinity Series race because they didn't want any of the Cup drivers to have an advantage. But all of the affiliated teams, just for instance, Trackhouse, we talk about Trackhouse Racing, they've entered an Xfinity Series car in the race, and Justin Marks, the owner, is going to drive because he's a former NASCAR driver. So he's going to drive the street race at Chicago in the Xfinity Series to gather data and information and stuff that they can use for the Cup Series race. The same thing with the JR Motorsports will be feeding information to the Hendricks cars because they're affiliated with them. So yes, as much information as they can get. Now the cars are different, but there will be things that they will be able to pick up from the Xfinity Series race and transfer into the Cup Series.
A little recon.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Great. Wade?
I was going to say, Heather, what would a win for NASCAR this weekend look like? What are they hoping to see come out of this race, both obviously with results and then potentially, with kind of just the overall experience in such a unique environment?
Well, I think the key is going to be the weather, and I think the weather's supposed to be pretty good this weekend. I think that in a lot of ways, they already feel like they've won. They released something either today or yesterday, might have been yesterday, that said that 70% of the people that have bought tickets to this race are first-time NASCAR ticket holders. So the whole point of this was attracting a different crowd, attracting the kind of maybe the F1 guys to look in because of the street racing, or an IndyCar person to look in and see, or maybe just a general like events fan, but not a crowd, like a NASCAR fan, because they are going to have concerts all weekend and events, and it's going to be more like a festival, not just a NASCAR race. So I think that because of the way the ticket sales have gone, that they already feel like they've won, but I think the race needs to be fairly entertaining. The weather has to be good, and the disruption to the city has to be minimal. Like the non-sports people can't be too angry at what's going on. They have festivals like this in this part of Chicago all the time, right? They have, I think it's the same area where they have Lilith Fair and a couple of other events. So they're used to having this part of Chicago shut down. But if all those things happen, I think that's a win. I don't even think the race has to be amazing. Like, I don't think it has to be Ross Chastain riding the wall at Martinsville excitement. I think it has to be a pretty good race, and entertaining for the fans, and the festivals and things have to go well. And I think NASCAR will consider that a win.
Where's NASCAR more likely to return to, Heather? Chicago or North Wilkesboro?
Oh gosh, probably North Wilkesboro. But I know that they want a street race on their schedule. And if it's not Chicago, it'll be somewhere else. I think that's something that I think they really want. North Wilkesboro needs work, I think, before it becomes a full-time Cup Series. I mean, I think they could run truck series all the time there now, but full-time Cup Series need better garage areas, need better concessions, need better bathrooms, all that kind of stuff. But I would say right now, I would put my money on North Wilkesboro.
Heather, you also mentioned the weather and reading reports, with the air quality and the haze and everything. Is that going to play any sort of factor into the weekend, both from a racing perspective and just the overall plans for NASCAR?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think as long as it's not terrible, I mean, it would just affect whether or not people want to stand out in all the time. Now, they all do have a bunch of VIP tents and a fan zone and that kind of stuff where people can kind of escape the weather outside. NASCAR switched to ethanol a few years ago, so the emissions from the cars isn't what it was 25 years ago, where it was just smelling and stinking up and burning up the atmosphere and all kind of stuff. They are burning ethanol, so it's a little bit better for the environment. It's not great still, but it's a little bit better. So I don't think that will contribute to the air quality in that regard. But I mean, that'll just be, and in Chicago, I'm sure they're used to a lot of that, but that'll just be whatever people that live there can tolerate.
Heather Williams at WCYB_Heather on Twitter. Follow her for all things NASCAR and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, a little bit of that we talk about.
Not so much the Royals these days, but
anyway. I talk about the Royals a little bit. When the kid had his debut walk-off hit, I did tweet about that. It's just they don't give me a lot to tweet about.
I understand. Hey, we appreciate your NASCAR knowledge. We appreciate your presence, and we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. Thank you, man.
Sounds great, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. When we come back here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint, we will be talking a little Braves. Come back.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think about calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that can happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone.
City just hits different. It's one big honky-tonk party. It's the sea of gold in the crowd, the goals, the saves, the celebrations. It's an experience like no other. Experience Predators hockey all season long. Visit NashvillePredators.com/season tickets and join the Loyal Legion today. That's NashvillePredators.com/tickets, and we'll see you at Bridgestone Arena.
There is nothing better than drinking an ice-cold beverage while taking in a Nashville Sounds baseball game. Hi, I'm Stephanie Miller with Mornings on Main Street. The Nashville Sounds and Main Street Media Television have teamed up to promote Sunday Family Fun Day here at First Horizon Park, each Sunday home game. Just go to your favorite Main Street Media website and click on Sounds Main Street Media Day banner to register to win free tickets. And then we'll see you here at the ballpark.
Tired of hanging lights every year? We get it. That's why Southern Nights is here to help. We install programmable lighting on your home or business so you can enjoy beautiful, customizable lighting all year round. No more ladders, tangled lights, or cold nights outside. We do the work, you do the celebrating. Call Southern Nights today and take the hassle out of holiday lighting forever. For a free quote, give us a call at 931-241-3074 or visit our Facebook page at Southern Nights.
June 28th, 2013, Chipper Jones became the 10th member of the Braves Hall of Fame, with his number 10 going up on the outfield wall at Turner Field alongside those of franchise luminaries Hank Aaron, Warren Spahn, Eddie Matthews, Phil Niekro, Dale Murphy, Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, and Bobby Cox. Oh, but Murphy, also Baseball Hall of Fame inductees. The Braves capped the festivities that night with a 3-0 victory over visiting Arizona, with me in the right field seats, as Jason Hayward, Dan Ugla, and BJ Upton each had a pair of hits, and Julio Teheran struck out 10 in 6 innings. That was this day in Braves history. And today's Braves coverage is brought to you by Piggly Wiggly and Neely's Mill, since they didn't bring the top story today to you. But be sure and head out to Piggly Wiggly for all of your hand-cut meats and their luncheon deli selections. That's Piggly Wiggly at Neely's Mill in Columbia. Stop by. Wade, you mentioned earlier in the show the ball was flying at Truist Field last night, especially earlier.
Woo, yes, it was. I caught Riley's dinger and one of the 2 from Acuna.
Well, you caught 2 of 5 because, again, Acuna had a couple. Sean Murphy had 1. Michael Harris had 1. And Ozzie Albies only tripled. Slacker in a 6-2 victory. But yeah, really felt a little sorry for the Minnesota starter, who gave up 3 home runs to the first 4 hitters he faced. Home run, triple, homer. Yeah. Tough night for him. And then they backed it up with that 3-0 win today to get a sweep of the series. So the Braves now 53-27 on the season.
What is that? 13 out of 15 in the month of June now?
It's more than that. They are like 19-4 this month, I think. They are coming up on matching the franchise record for wins in a month, which is 21, which I think was also last June. They like June.
Yeah, and you can't win it in June, but you could certainly put a lot of ground between you and your opponents in June.
You can put a lot of ground between you and your opponents, and they have done that. They are maintaining a double-digit lead over the 2 teams that were expected to be their primary competition in the NL East. The Mets are 16 back, or were coming into today. The Phillies were 10.5 back, and let's see. They won 2 of 3 at Arizona to open the month, swept the Mets, won 2 of 3 against Washington, took 2 of 3 at Detroit, swept Colorado, took 2 in a rain-shortened series at Philadelphia. Obviously, that 2 of 3 at Cincinnati this past weekend, and now they've swept Minnesota. So whatever that adds up to, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. No, they have 21 wins in June, if I'm counting correctly, which I was counting quickly, so I may not be.
I saw a tweet from SportsCenter right when we signed on, and 13 of 14, and it's kind of showing their last 14 with that crazy 11-10 game versus the Reds being the lone one, which obviously very easily could have been 11-10 Braves at that point. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So they are clicking, and the national media is not ducking them, that's for sure, because SportsCenter is showing them some love today.
That's good. I mean, it's tough to not. They've got the best record in the National League, and they are with Tampa Bay finally cooling off a little bit on the other side. They are challenging the Rays for the best record in baseball. With the break about a week away. Again, they are going to be well represented in the All-Star game, and they're just playing. They're clicking, like you said, on all cylinders. They're playing great baseball. They're knocking the cover off the ball for the most part, and they're also getting some really good pitching. Virtually whoever goes to the mound these days, because Kobe Allard came up to make a spot start today and gave them 4 2/3 with 8 strikeouts, and you won't turn that away. So again, you're even getting it from virtually unexpected sources at time. Kirby Yates throws an inning and a third scoreless. AJ Minter with a scoreless 7th, followed by Joe Jimenez and Iggy Raziel Iglesias getting the save with a scoreless 9th. So the Braves with a 3-0 win today, again following up on that 6-2 win last night with 5 home runs. Off tomorrow before the Marlins come in for 3 on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the second place in the division, Marlins. So it'll be interesting to see how that one shapes up.
Yeah, and I was just getting ready to say, you're taking on the Twins, who are not a great team, but they're not a horrible team.
They're leading the AL Central.
Exactly. Someone's got to lead that division, but they are leading the division. And to me, those are games that good teams will take 2 out of 3. But if you're really kind of planting your flag as an elite team this year, yeah, you just go ahead and sweep those. Whether it's high school baseball, college baseball, or major leagues, if you see those games left on the table, you lose one here, but you take 2 out of 3. But the elite teams, it seems like, find a way to win all 3. And that was a quality series from Atlanta this week.
Yeah, really just kind of stepped on their throats, basically. And it's what you like to see for a team that's, the 2021 World Series champion, went out in the second round last year. A lot of gnashing of teeth over that one, but coming back to make another run. And like you said, I like that phrase, kind of planting your flag. Again, they have cemented themselves here in late June as the class of the National League, and you don't want to get carried away with that, because again, you don't win a whole lot in June, but you can really put yourself in position to do so, and it seems that they're really doing that. Meanwhile, Wade, your Astros, and we talked about this earlier in the week.
Nope.
Yeah. Kind of treading water right now. 4-2 loss last night at St. Louis against the Cardinals team that has kind of been in disarray at times over the course of this season.
Yeah, not great. Not great at all. But got a chance to maybe come back. They're 3-7 in their last 10. And first it was Altuve, and now you got Alvarez, who reports say he's got some promising updates about his injury return, which will be a shot in the arm. So they haven't played with a full deck for much of the season. And that's the only little bit of hope that I'm clinging to, because right now there's not a lot to be super hopeful about, just sitting there 5 games over 500. And quietly, they just got leapt by the Angels last night in the division. So you're trailing them, and you're still trailing Texas by 6 games. Now, granted, obviously you're going to play those teams a lot in the next couple months to come, but until they can get a full deck and then kind of toil, but meanwhile, you're waiting for Alvarez to come back, and you're waiting for your team to be at full strength. Kind of like the Braves in June. You can't win the division in June, but you can really come close to doing it if you play your cards right. And Houston could play themselves right out of this thing if they're not careful.
Yeah, as you said, trailing the Rangers by 6 games, trailing the Angels now by a game, and Shohei Ohtani just continuing to be the best player in baseball. 2 home runs and 10 strikeouts last night.
Unreal, this guy. It's just mind-boggling how he finds different ways to impress you on a nightly basis.
And it's just amazing. I mean, his talent kind of dictates it, but the fact that the Angels were out of the box enough from the time he arrived to say, okay, he can pitch and he can hit. Let's let him do both. All he's doing is leading Major League Baseball with 28 home runs. And again, had a 10 strikeout effort on the mound last night. It's stuff that we have never seen at the major league level. I mean, you kind of have to go back to Babe Ruth, and contrary to popular belief, I didn't see him. Wade,
I wasn't around either.
Yeah. So
No.
I mean, it's
So it's interesting here. Ohtani is the overwhelming favorite, according to Vegas, to win your American League MVP, and he's only 5th in the Cy Young race, trailing McClanahan, Valdez, Gossman, and Garrett Cole. I mean,
Gossman.
But if he puts up a couple performances on the mound like he did last night, I mean, he'd be right back up there in the top 2 or 3 in your betting odds too. So now there's no way I don't think you could ever win both. But other than somebody which is currently in the midst of potential of Chase for 400 this season.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that would be one of the wilder storylines in baseball history. You got a guy potentially vying for both the MVP or the Cy Young.
I just think that the fact that you're even having the conversation, is pretty amazing. Just the fact that you're talking about, he can't win both, can he? I mean, just even framing it like that, I think is just an amazing conversation to have.
It's unreal. And like I said, the guy just finds ways to continue to do well. And, they still got a guy by the name of Mike Trout on the squad, which certainly helps matters, which maybe this is the year that the Angels finally bust through that proverbial glass ceiling and get back to a little bit of postseason glory. But Texas standing firmly in their way, and there's still a couple of other pretty good teams in the American League they'd have to potentially fight through as well.
Here's the thing, Wade, as you consider that, I think it's terribly important for the Angels that they do break through this year, because this is Ohtani's walk year.
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't think there would be a better time for the Angels to somehow make their way into the postseason than this year, to kind of show this guy, hey, we can compete, as opposed to him saying, I want to go somewhere where I can win. So,
yeah, you're exactly right. You go to the playoffs, you maybe even have a good run, potentially maybe even make the World Series, and you're saying, okay, look, we can do this here.
Right.
And there's no need to leave. Whereas you're exactly right. If you fall short, you miss the playoffs, you may be wondering, what the hell? What else? I can't do anymore. So, I mean, I've done all I can personally. So
literally,
let me see if I can go find somewhere else to maybe do that. And obviously there would be a million suitors coming for his services. So
absolutely.
It's crazy to think about that they have not been able to solve that postseason riddle. And that was with Trout alone. And now you factor in, you got 2 generational talents on the same team. And I mean, let's just be honest. It's not like they're just blowing teams out of the water. They're still only just 7 games. They're not playing like the Braves right now, but it seems like they are clicking here in the last couple of weeks, though.
They're giving themselves a chance for sure. When we come back here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint, we should be joined by Chris Lee of Southeastern 14 to talk a little SEC sports. So stay with us.
Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint treats your orthopedic injuries and existing conditions. Our trained physicians will get you back in the game faster. Contact us at 931-381-2663 or www.mtbj.net. Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
You can't see the sights without the sounds. From the crack of the bat to the roar of the crowd and everything in between, discover what Hit City has to offer. Spend your nights cheering on the Nashville Sounds at First Horizon Park with giveaways, fireworks shows, theme weekends, and more. Single game tickets are on sale now. Visit NashvilleSounds.com to claim your seat today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint has been the official sports medicine provider for Murray County Schools for more than 40 years. We specialize in orthopedic service, and our Ortho Quick Walk-In Clinic lets you bypass the ER. Visit us online at www.mtbj.net. Welcome back to the Wednesday edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint, as Florida and Tennessee wrap up their contest in the Geico High School Baseball Championships out in Dallas. And when I tell you the wheels fell off for Tennessee, remember it was scoreless in the fifth?
Yeah.
Well, the final was 12-1 Florida.
Yee.
In 6 innings.
Ooh. Deteriorating rapidly.
Yeah, that escalated rather quickly. And so Team Tennessee has to regroup quickly as they are set to play Illinois here in about an hour. You can see that game on ESPN Plus, as was the last one, and hopefully Chris Parker and company can bounce back and put together a more complete showing. Again, it was scoreless into the fifth before all hell broke loose. Yeah, 12-1. So yeah, got away from them. Think they waited a little bit too long to make a pitching change, and you know how that goes.
Yep.
Somebody else that knows how that goes. Chris Lee of Southeastern 14 joining us here on Main Street Sports Today. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Oh, and thank you. Oh, look at you with the swag.
Decked out.
I like that. That's a good look, man. Hey, wanted to get you in for a couple of reasons. You know, as Wade and I talked earlier, you know, LSU rebounded about as well as you could rebound from a 24-4 loss in a College World Series with an 18-4 win on Monday night to wrap up their 7th national championship. And with what they were able to do with their roster, Chris, from last year to this year in the portal and with NIL and that kind of thing, are you concerned about college baseball?
A little bit. There are a lot of things. Well, let me start with the positive. I think right now there are things that suggest that the game is as good as it's ever been and heading in a upward trend. Easy for me to say. I mean, I think the TV ratings sound like they've been good. I haven't dug in on those. The product, guys, is phenomenal. Like I don't know how much of the whole event you guys got to watch. I said this from before it started. I said I didn't ever remember a World Series field that I felt was as attractive as it was, just from good teams, great teams, tremendous prospects. I mean, the final series had the guys who were going to be the top 3 college guys taken, if not the top 3 guys taken overall. I think the product on the field is fantastic. Now, I'll tell you the things I don't like. The roster tampering, and I think I'm concerned, and I know I'm covering the SEC, but for the little guys, you spend all kinds of time and energy recruiting a kid, and this happens in all sports. But it used to happen not at all in baseball. And your guy gets taken out from under you in the blink of an eye after one good year by a bigger program, and you've got programs that are. I've heard instances where the brazenness has just gone to a new level. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Johnny, talk to Mickey and see if he might want to come play for State University. It's the coach picks up the phone and calls him in the middle of the season. I don't think that kind of stuff is good. I think the combination of NIL and transfer portal is the way that it's playing out is bad, including and mostly the tampering. So those are the things that I don't like. I also don't like some of the equipment stuff. I think it's too easy to get a tampered bat in the game. I think the balls are too hot. I think, you saw 2 different games a lot of times. You saw the games being played in the regular season and in the regionals, and then you go to Omaha where you got a lot of 3-2 type games because of the ballpark, because maybe the balls and the bats were used, but you're not getting them out of that park when the wind's blowing in. I know you saw a reversion in the final couple of games there, but I think if you could by chance get the tampering stuff under control, and look, that used to be a thing where coaches felt like they kind of policed it themselves. Like, you didn't even call another kid's commit. I would like to see it return to something like that. And I'd like to see something done about the baseballs and the bats. I think if you do those things, the rest of the game right there, the popularity has been great. I think Tennessee being great in baseball has been great for the game. I think Auburn having resurgence has been good for the fan base down there. I see a lot of good things in the SEC and a lot of fan bases that are excited about baseball that weren't before. But I see some things that I don't like that I think need to be changed and hopefully will be.
Is LSU the poster boy for that, from a standpoint that their 2 biggest impact players this year are both transfers?
Maybe. I mean, certainly that's how it worked out last year. They get Tommy White, and White wouldn't be their biggest impact player. That would be Dylan Cruz. But Tommy White was the best hitter on the market last year. LSU got him. Paul Skeens was the best arm in the country. It ended up last year. LSU got him. LSU's got enough money to win a bidding war, I think, with just about anybody, if that's what it gets down. Now, look, some of these kids, and I keep thinking this may go another way, because if you're a guy that enters the portal and you're a year away from making $3, $4, $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 million, whatever that number is, I don't know, to me, how much, $100,000 or $200,000 is. If you're going to make that much later, at that point, if I'm that kind of player, get an insurance policy and pick the place you want to be, right? Now, not all kids think that way. Money talks in the portal. But I think that also that got a lot of attention, right? And rightfully so. But let me throw the other piece of the puzzle at you. You saw Paul Maneri in the stands for those games wearing his LSU. And I'm glad you got to see him there. I'm glad he was there, because I think the thing that people forget is he put together a lot of the bones of that roster. He's the guy who recruited Dylan Cruz. And, he stayed there 3 years, was the Golden Spikes guy. Trey Morgan, another Paul Maneri recruit. Several guys on that team were Paul Maneri recruits. So, yeah, the portal got the attention because they got White and they got Cruz. Skeens, and those were big guys. Those were huge additions, and that was what put them over the top. But they also did build a base of guys that they got through the draft the first time around through Paul Maneri, and I think that gets a little bit overshadowed in all this.
Chris Lee of Southeastern 14 joining us on Main Street Sports today. To follow up on that, though, Chris, South Carolina shortstop Michael Braswell headed to Baton Rouge. So it's just kind of more where that came from to some degree.
Yeah, and the Shelton kid at Alabama, I think, is ending up at Florida. Correct me if I'm wrong. I lost some of this in just the games being played. You got Luke Coleman from Alabama in the portal. Look, I think the teams like Alabama in particular, where resources are spent elsewhere, I think that's a shame because Alabama had started to build back a pretty decent baseball program. COVID got them in 2020 when I think they were unbeaten or close to it. You had Connor Prelip miss a couple years with injury. He was their ace. I know I'm getting a little sidetracked, but you know, it keeps piling on that program. South Carolina, Mark Kingston got it turned around last year. Now he loses one of his key guys. I don't think it's great for the game. I don't think it's good when you're seeing guys leave one program in the league for the other, but until the NCAA figures out a way to put a stop to it, it's probably not going to end anytime soon.
Speaking of portal news, it's tough to talk portal without talking about the Chase Burns decision, and I guess we're waiting on the other shoe to fall on that, but certainly leaving Tennessee. And I made a couple of phone calls yesterday myself, and this isn't well, he's in the portal, but he could come back. No, he's gone.
Yeah. No, you're right, and I think we wait to see where he lands. I don't know how long that's going to take. The three schools that you hear most prominently mentioned are LSU, TCU, and Vandy. I think if it becomes a highest bidder situation, again, good luck beating LSU. If it maybe becomes a place that can pay some NIL money and maybe he wants to get out of the state, get away, TCU would make a lot of sense because you're not going to have the eyes of Knoxville bearing on you every time you pitch like you will in the SEC. Vandy, I think, is the place that was his favorite school growing up. It's 30 minutes away. Vanderbilt's not going to get a bidding war with anybody. The way Corbin does NIL is it's you come to campus, you do the stuff in the classroom, you be a good citizen, then you get paid. So and again, that's where
it's not a bad thing, by the way.
No, well, look, I mean, and he gets criticized for it a lot, but I mean, that's a little bit how Nick Saban does it at Alabama. I think those kids get a little bit of money when they sign, but it's not a big six-figure amount. I think it's pretty even. From what I've been told, I'm not reporting. I'm just speaking out loud here. You got a lot of schools. You got some prominent football. I mean, Georgia's not a huge player in the portal in football. Hadn't slowed Kirby Smart down. You see some of these schools that are getting transfers, and Clark Lee's said it privately. I think sometimes transfers, you're picking up other people's problems. So, look, that's not always the case. Sometimes you have kids that come from schools where they probably have a grievance, whether it's playing for a jerk of a coach or in any number of things, maybe wanting to change majors. I mean, there's a lot of reasons kids could transfer, being closer to home. But I think that, to me, Vandy may be the one to watch here. And from my understanding, is Chase Burns isn't doing a lot of talking to a lot of people right now. So I think you've seen a lot of speculation. You've seen people in Knoxville say he's going to TCU. I've heard a lot of confidence from people connected to Vandy that he's going to end up there. But, I mean, he also only got in the portal yesterday. The admissions process there is probably going to take a couple weeks. Does he wait that out? Does he wait and see, okay, I'm sick of this, I'll go somewhere else where I can get in sooner? Does he want to go to Vandy and play in a situation where you're going to have red-hot fires stoked when he pitches against his old team and God knows what else? It doesn't generally go over well when you leave the state school and transfer to a rival. Is he built for that? I don't know. I don't know the answers to any of those things, but it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. I mean, surely Chase Burns can pitch for any team in the country, and I'll be interested to see where that settles.
Chris, we saw the SEC football schedule come out either last week or 2 weeks ago, and we're about 2 weeks away from media days. Number one, have you kind of wrapped your brain completely around the fact that football season is imminently approaching? And then number two, what are maybe some key storylines as we kind of get into this last little news cycle of media days that we can expect out of in the lead up to those meetings up in Nashville?
Yeah, well, reality starts to settle in right when that last pitch is thrown in Omaha, and when you start getting practice schedules of this is when media opportunities are going to be and that kind of thing. I mean, it never ends. You have the 2024 schedule released. Yeah, I mean, it's here. That's what people are going to be talking about, and my goodness, it's going to be I think this year heading into the SEC is potentially as fascinating as I remember in a long time.
Skipping ahead, Chris taking the long view. The SEC announced the schedule for the inaugural SEC ACC or ACC SEC, depending on which conference you're affiliated with, I guess, basketball challenge. The men and the women will play over 2 days, November 28th and 29th for the men, November 29th and 30th for the women. Have you had a chance to look at that schedule?
I haven't, but if you've got a game or two you want to bounce off me, I say that. It's hard to know who's playing where these days. I mean, I've been so engrossed in baseball and now trying to get ready on football. All the basketball's changed too. So
absolutely, yeah. It just came across my Twitter earlier today, and I was fascinated by the fact that they were announcing that now. But here are the men's matchups: Clemson at Alabama, Miami at Kentucky, LSU at Syracuse, NC State at Ole Miss, Mississippi State at Georgia Tech, Missouri at Pitt, and Notre Dame at South Carolina. Those will all be played on the 28th. On the 29th, you've got Duke at Arkansas, Virginia Tech at Auburn, Florida at Wake, Georgia at Florida State, Tennessee at North Carolina, Texas A&M at Virginia, and Boston College coming to Memorial Gym against the Commodores.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you said Duke at Arkansas, and Tennessee at North. Those are the two that stick out. Miami at Kentucky for different reasons. I don't know. Is Kentucky an underdog in its own gym? I'm not sure how Miami reloaded, but I mean, Kentucky, there's some concern there. You know, the whole rebuild it overnight the way that he's done for so long hasn't been working to the level that it has been. You would have thought that if there was a coach that was poised to adapt to this environment, it would have been John Calipari, but it's not worked out that way. I think, though, I know Tennessee's got a backcourt that's been there since, I don't know, before the 3-point line, it seems like. They got a lot of experience. That'll be interesting with North Carolina. Obviously, proximity makes that a road trip that fans can go to. And Arkansas, another team that I think is reloaded in the portal. And, of course, Duke is always Duke. So, I mean, it'll be fun to watch, I'm sure.
On the women's side, you got Florida at Georgia Tech, Louisville at Ole Miss, Miami at Mississippi State, Notre Dame at Tennessee, I would think is probably the marquee matchup. And Vanderbilt goes to NC State on Wednesday the 29th. On Thursday, you've got Alabama at Syracuse, Arkansas at Florida State, Clemson at Auburn, Duke at Georgia, Boston College at Kentucky, Virginia Tech at LSU, Missouri at Virginia, South Carolina at North Carolina, and Texas A&M at Wake Forest. I guess that Virginia Tech LSU game is a matchup of two women's Final Four participants. So I would assume that maybe that is the marquee matchup, but certainly some.
Sorry, I lost you for a minute.
I was just running through the women's basketball schedule for that ACC SEC challenge, Chris. I don't know if you caught any of it or not, but particularly Notre Dame is at Tennessee, Vanderbilt's at North Carolina State on Wednesday, and Virginia Tech is at LSU on Thursday. Again, Virginia Tech and LSU, a matchup of two Final Four participants from this past year.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about those. You guys probably know a lot more than I do. But I mean, LSU obviously coming off a national title, where that one got rebuilt in a hurry would be one that would, I think catch most people's eye.
Yeah. Okay. Wade? Any thoughts?
I'm just again just flabbergasted at the 2 box scores from games 2 and 3 of the final series there out in Omaha. And Chris, I guess I was just curious, when you watch game 2, going into game 3, did you get the feeling that LSU would bounce back? Maybe certainly not to the extent that they did, but what was your take heading into that game? And because we saw LSU just come back with a vengeance in that 3rd and final game.
Yeah, one of the first things I thought when that game was over was that LSU getting destroyed might be the best thing for them. And this is what I mean. That one was over from about the 4th inning on when Ty Evans hit that grand slam. And here's what you don't want to be in when you are potentially short of pitching is you don't want to be in one of those games where it's 6-6 in the 5th and or the 4th, and you're going, okay, let's throw our best arms here, and then end up losing that game by 1 run, especially if it goes extra innings. The way that game panned out, getting their doors blown off, they end up throwing about 4 guys that you were pretty sure they weren't going to throw in a winner-take-all situation. Blake Money might have been the exception, but I think he would have been good for maybe an inning most. I think that ended up being really big because they saved all their good guys that they were going to use at that point, including Skeen, so they didn't have to use because Jack Caglione fell apart so early in that one. I think, ironically, getting blown out by 20 runs, I can't think of many circumstances where that is a good outcome, but I think in LSU's case it was.
Chris Lee of Southeastern 14 joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Chris, as always, appreciate your insight, man, and look forward to catching up with you here a little bit closer to the football season and to SEC Media Days here in about 3 weeks. So it's coming.
Be there. It's almost here.
Yeah.
And thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you, man.
Yes.
We'll talk to you. Time now to wrap up Wednesday's show, as we always do, with Wild and Wacky Wednesday. It's the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest news from the globe. And we're going to start in New York, upstate New York, where university janitor who turned off a freezer after hearing multiple annoying alarms ruined more than 20 years of research, according to a lawsuit filed against his employer by Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in upstate New York. The janitor is not sued, but he was a contractor with a cleaning company that worked for several months in 2020 at the Troy, New York Private Research University. Apparently, the freezer contained over 20 years of research, including cell cultures and samples, to which a small temperature fluctuation of 3 degrees would cause catastrophic damage. Freezer needed to be maintained at negative 80 degrees Celsius. And alarms would sound if the temperature increased to negative 78 or decreased to negative 82 degrees Celsius. Apparently, the temperature had risen to negative 78. Alarms were going off, and the janitor flipped the circuit breakers, turning off electricity to the freezer. And freezer eventually, the temperature rose to minus 32. Everything was compromised, destroyed, and rendered unsalvageable, demolishing more than 20 years of research.
I mean, that sounds like a scene from a sitcom. Ain't nobody got time for these alarms.
Right.
These are annoying. I'm just flip them off.
Apparently, there was
20 plus years of research down the drain.
Yeah, there was a warning on the freezer. This freezer is beeping as it is under repair. Please do not move or unplug it. No cleaning required in this area. You can press the alarm test mute button for 5 to 10 seconds if you would like to mute the sound. Apparently, this was a new janitor to the area. Thus, didn't read the warning, flipped the circuit breakers, 20 years gone. Pretty amazing. Headline from an article on the Associated Press: Orcas disrupt boat race near Spain in latest display of dangerous, puzzling behavior. A pod of killer whales bumped one of the boats in an endurance sailing race as it approached the Strait of Gibraltar. The latest encounter in what researchers say is a growing trend of sometimes aggressive interactions with Iberian orcas. You're just sailing around, minding your own business, and you get hit by 3 orcas.
I'm telling you, don't mess with them orcas. This is the second or third time we've seen something in the last couple months. They're up to something, Mo.
They've got something in mind, and it's not good. Orcas average from 16 to 21 feet and weigh more than 8,000 pounds. That's not something I want to see, I don't think.
Nope, I'm out.
Yeah. I think I turn the sails and head in another direction as quickly as possible, but it's probably not as quick as the orcas. So once you're there, you just kind of...
You didn't see any on your cruise a couple weeks ago, did you?
No, did not. Thank goodness. Yeah.
They didn't disrupt your vacation. That's good, at least.
Exactly. And finally, group promoting plant-based eating wants a new name for Macon Bacon baseball team. A doctors group that promotes plant-based eating and animal rights is making a fuss over the Macon Bacon baseball team. Group has sponsored a billboard imploring Macon fans to keep bacon off your plate. Macon Bacon's glorification of bacon, a processed meat that raises the risk of colorectal cancer and other diseases, sends the wrong message to fans, according to the group. So, in Georgia, I'm not sure just how well that's going to go.
It's going to be a tough sell.
The Macon Bacon had its first season with the Coastal Plains League in 2018 after the name was chosen in a vote by fans. And it's not just a name. The ballpark concessions menu includes bacon-wrapped bacon, steak-cut bacon, bacon-loaded cheese fries, and bacon chips.
Bacon-wrapped bacon.
Bacon-wrapped bacon.
Just making sure I got that right. Okay.
That's what it says. That's almost worth the price of admission right there in and of itself. But
hey, and I think we'll be safe too. But that same group, they better not come for my Montgomery biscuits. That's all I'm gonna say.
Right. The Macon Bacon.
Start with the bacon, then where does it stop, Mo? Sorry.
Where does it stop? Absolutely. I mean, the Racing Sausages in Milwaukee just celebrated their 30-year anniversary yesterday. I mean, are they next? Where do we go? The Macon Bacon do not view ourselves as a glorification of an unhealthy lifestyle, according to the team. Rather, we pride ourselves on being a fun-natured organization focused on bringing families and communities of Middle Georgia and beyond together. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. But
I mean, the Macon not bacon, perhaps. I mean,
they suggested that the team change its name to Macon Fakin Bacon, referring to a plant-based bacon.
I see what you did there, but yeah, it just doesn't roll off the tongue quite.
No, it doesn't. I don't think that's going to be a suitable substitute.
I see what you did there.
Yes. That's going to do it for Wild and Wacky Wednesday. That's going to do it for the Wednesday edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint. Again, I want to thank Heather Williams and Chris Lee for visiting with us today. Check back with us tomorrow at 2:00. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you tomorrow.